Hey, welcome to Youth Sunday School. We are continuing our story of Joseph this week. We're not actually reading any scripture today. We're just gonna smash through some summaries of chapters 42 to 44 because the story is so long. But I wore a scarf today because I want it to be fall. Do you want it to be fall? I want it to be like pumpkins and hay rides and corn mazes and chilly weather and sweaters and all those fun things. Fall is my favorite season. What's your favorite season? Great! Sorry, this isn't Dora the Explorer. So let's just go ahead and jump in. So the last part where we left off Joseph, he had interpreted Pharaoh's dreams and Pharaoh had put him in charge of Egypt. And there's a famine hitting the land that they are well prepared for thanks to Joseph. So to summarize Genesis chapter 42, the famine hits. And it hits not just Egypt, but all the surrounding lands, including Canaan, where Joseph's family lives. So the famine hits Jacob and all of Joseph's family back home in Canaan. They hear that Egypt has food that they can buy, and nobody else does. So Jacob sends all of his sons except for Benjamin. Benjamin is the youngest, and he's the only other child of Rachel besides Joseph. So remember, Jacob had 4 wives, and he had 2 sons with Rachel. One was Joseph, one was Benjamin. And so since he's already lost Joseph and believes him to be dead, he doesn't want to lose Benjamin too because Rachel's his favorite wife. Shh. That's actually not that secret. So he sends all of his sons except for Benjamin down to Egypt. When they arrive in Egypt, Joseph pretends not to know them, and then he accuses them of being spies. He throws all of his brothers in jail for 3 days. And then he decides, you know what, I guess I'll give you guys some food. And he keeps one brother, Simeon, as collateral. So, I don't know if you've heard the word collateral before, but it's basically just like if someone borrows something from you, you can like keep something of theirs that they value to make sure that you get your thing back. That's what collateral is. So Joseph demands that they bring Benjamin to Egypt. And he sends his brothers back home with food and with money. And his brothers, except for Simeon, who he has kept as collateral, they all return home to Jacob and they ask for Benjamin. And Jacob says no. Jacob is basically like, don't you dare take Benjamin from me. If Benjamin dies, I will die of grief. And then we get to Genesis chapter 43. So Jacob eventually gives in. He's like, okay, we're hungry, we don't have any food. If they're demanding Benjamin, then I guess I'll send him with you. And so they arrive in Egypt, and Joseph, knowing full well who they are, invites them to his house for a meal, like basically a banquet or a feast. And he gives Simeon back to them because they brought Benjamin. And when Joseph sees Benjamin, he has to run off and cry all by himself, so he doesn't give himself away, because his brothers don't recognize him. They don't know that he's Joseph, but Joseph knows who they are. And so when Joseph sees his little brother, his full brother, all the others are his half-brothers, he gets really overcome with emotion and has to run away and hide his emotions before he comes back. And then when they come back and have their feast, one thing that happens is Joseph seats them all in their birth order. So like oldest to youngest. And I'm sure that has to be puzzling. They're probably wondering, how does he know? And I bet they assume it's some kind of like divine intervention or like God doing something. So then we go to Genesis 44. And Joseph, again, packs up a bunch of food for all his brothers to take back to Canaan, to take back home to Jacob and their family. And he hides a silver cup in Benjamin's bag to make it look like Benjamin stole it. And so then Joseph sends his household manager after all of his brothers while they've just gotten on the road to go back home. And they say, Joseph's silver cup has been stolen. Which one of you has it? And so their bags get searched, and then it turns out that the cup is in Benjamin's bag. So Joseph has them all hauled back to his house, and he says, I'm keeping Benjamin. He's a thief. which is bad for Judah, because Judah was in charge of keeping Benjamin safe, and Judah's the one that their dad will punish if he comes back without Benjamin. So Judah, who's responsible for Benjamin, has to make a case with Joseph to say, please let us bring our brother back, or our dad will die of grief. And Joseph is secretly like, oh, that's my dad too, maybe I don't want him to die of grief. And then that's the end of Genesis 44. We don't know what Joseph answers yet. So I really only have a couple of fun facts for you this week. One is Joseph's story is unique in that it describes his emotions and what he's feeling. This doesn't happen a whole lot in scripture. Usually scripture just tells you what people are doing, not what they're feeling. There are other stories where it describes people's emotions, but there are not as many. So he has a pretty unique story in that. The story often describes how he has to run away and cry, or how he has so many overwhelming feelings about his family and seeing them again. Another thing that it shows is that Joseph is putting on a tough face for his brothers. He's acting all imperious and in charge and demanding with them when he's with them, but then when he goes away, he's overcome with his feelings, and he still very much loves his family, but he's also giving them a hard time. So our second fun fact is that the main thing that he's doing right now, he's not just being rude for revenge, because honestly, if he wanted, Joseph could have had them all instantly killed the moment they set foot in Egypt for what they had done to him, sold him into slavery. And it may have been a fitting punishment, it might have been justice, but Joseph decided against it. He went with mercy. And so instead he decides to test his brothers, because they had once abandoned him in order to save themselves. And so Joseph sees an opportunity to test them and see if maybe they'll abandon Benjamin in order to save themselves. And when he realizes they're not about to leave Egypt without Benjamin, Joseph realizes that they've learned and they've grown after what they did to Joseph years ago. And so I think it brings Joseph joy to see that his family learned from losing him, basically, and they now realize the importance and value of their family and keeping it as whole as they can. So what's the main lesson here? I think a big thing is that Joseph continues to be kind to his brothers despite acting tough on the surface. He still gives them the food they need, he gives them money they didn't ask for, he doesn't kill them even though they sold him into slavery. Despite everything he's been through, he now realizes he's in a position of power over them. I'm sure Joseph full well knows that he could have them killed if he wanted to, but he decides against it because he still loves his family. He still is having grace and mercy for them. So we see that Joseph doesn't really change that much throughout his whole story. He is always kind of soft and kind and loving and vulnerable. He's still very perceptive to the ways that God moves in the world and just kind of spiritually open. So he's a good role model to have. And then the other thing that I wonder if we could learn from this story is that he's kind of petty. He doesn't kill his brothers, but he does throw them in jail. He doesn't reveal who he is. He kind of makes them suffer a little bit. I don't know. If we're using Joseph as a model for our morality, maybe it means it's okay to be a little bit petty sometimes as long as you're not being cruel. I don't know, what do you all think? So that's all I've got for you this week. Yeah, we'll continue next week with the last part of the story. Hopefully we'll finish it next week. I didn't mean to spend this long on Joseph, but it turns out it's just, there's a lot going on in this story. Oops. I hope that you all have a good week. I hope that you're staying safe and healthy. I hope you're wearing your mask. I hope that school is okay. Remember, the virtual youth loft is open after school from 3 to 5. If you ever want someone to talk to, I'm here for you. And make sure to come to youth group on Wednesday night, where we do a devotion and play games and share prayer requests. Love y'all. Have a good week.